An innocent girl is exposed to something horrifying, an unknown influence that makes her devour an innocent flicky and makes the person she looks up to most doubt her and look at her like she's a monster. I suppose I have an affinity for making videos on hedgehogs that eat things they don't normally eat. But it's these kinds of stories that weirdly interest me. No need to be worried about me in the comments. Withered Rose is no exception to this. And to complement the story, the art is fantastic. You guys also recommended I check it out after Hungry Hero, and I do occasionally read my comments. But I should leave a warning here. If you choose to support the creator, please be 18 or older. They have content on there that isn't for kids. So keep that in mind if you want to support them. Oh, and there is a lot of gore in this video, so keep that in mind. But you know what would help with that? Cheeky. Notice I put this video out on Valentine's Day? Nothing says I love you like offering to help wash red tomato paste off your loved ones using Cheeky's new Iron Mouse soap. I've been watching Iron Mouse for a long time. I've watched a lot of her in Sea Dog VA, and it's always a blast. And in time for Valentine's Day, we get this awesome soap. Use my code Dunkachi to get 10% off this permanent item and be extra clean. With that out of the way, let's get into this rather short but tragic story of Withered Rose. The story begins with Tails and Sonic looming over Amy, who appears to be in pretty bad condition. They're pleading for her to wake up, saying her name over and over, hoping for some sort of response. She slowly opens her eyes, blood and cuts all over her body and face. But as she goes to get up, she looks at the blood on her hands, and for some reason she feels fine. No pain, no hindered movements. She can move freely. In case this wasn't obvious, she shouldn't be able to move at all. If you look closely, you can see her arm is almost separated, literally scarred everywhere. She's even missing a piece of her ear. It's safe to assume this is where she was quote-unquote infected. I say the air quotes because we don't know if this is an infection, a parasite, or something else entirely. Regardless of what Amy thinks, Tails wants to take her to his workshop to run tests on her and get her patched up. So that's what he does. After being patched up and hooked up to an IV, which I hate these things by the way, I don't know if you've had an IV in your arm, but it feels disgusting. At least it did for me. Amy continues to say that she feels fine, but how exactly? Tails reminds her that she lost a lot of blood, and the lack of pain is what concerns him the most. Sonic chimes in and says that he thought she was gonna die, but gets shaken up. Amy is looking at him concerned. And as she does this, it's almost like a switch flips in her head. She snaps the IV out of her arm and begins to stand up, saying that she is completely fine and has no problems. You could tell something is wrong because just taking an IV out of your arm like it's nothing is a big red flag to me. As she's about to leave, she says she wants to head home to get some new clothes because the ones she's wearing are currently torn up. But Tails yells for her to wait because he needs to run a few more tests to monitor her condition and get to the bottom of her pain. But Amy argues they've been at this for hours and she's feeling claustrophobic and needs to go home. Sonic feels now is the time to chime in and give her the go-ahead to leave, telling her to come back as soon as possible. This surely won't backfire at all. Amy gleefully thanks Sonic, making her way out. Tails is a bit confused by this, but Sonic explains that she needs a break. Additionally, he states how weird the situation was, as she was half dead when they found her, getting up like nothing had happened. This might actually be a hint to what's happening, and maybe she is in a state where she is like half dead. We just gotta keep reading to find out. Sonic thought initially it was adrenaline, but acting like everything is fine afterwards is just bizarre. Her heart was also beating slow, but she moved fine while awake, hence why Tails wanted to run more tests. The ultimate conclusion is, whatever is going on with her, it's not normal. I really like this first chapter. The expression on the characters' faces are really well done, and it made me curious to find out more. Amy should be dead, but by some force of nature, she's moving around acting like things are fine. The next chapter starts with an internal monologue by Amy. She thinks that she's fine, but is a little curious on how she's not dead considering her previous condition. You'll notice that her eyes seem to be blank. Flickies look down at her on this beautiful day. She's calmed down quite a bit. A Flicky even lands on her hand, and she invites it to come with her to an apple tree so it can have a nice juicy apple. Also, in this shot, this bird has quills like Sonic, and I don't know if that's intentional or foreshadowing something, but I think I'm thinking too much into it. Guys, when you read enough of these stories, you start to go crazy. I'm the guy standing next to the whiteboard trying to connect pieces that probably aren't there. As Amy goes to spend time with the Flicky, Sonic realizes it's been a while since she's left. So he doesn't have to go too far and finds her at the previously mentioned apple tree. Sonic approaches her, happy to have found her, and asks if she's feeding a Flicky. It seems innocent at first, but once he hears a crunch and Amy turns around to face him, something horrifying is revealed. Amy has the blood and guts of a Flicky spread across her lips and hands, looking back to Sonic with lifeless eyes. She offers him an apple, saying they're juicy and fresh. Ironically, there are multiple apples laid beside the Flicky. There's this really pretty art piece with Amy offering an apple to Sonic on what Amy sees, and there's another picture that shows what Sonic sees. This is horrifying, but if I can theorize something real quick. Sometimes I think too much into things, but I think that this makes for a more interesting video. It's peculiar that apples were picked as a fruit, because it could be symbolism. You could associate apples with love, knowledge, and temptation. I don't think Amy truly knows how tempted she is to devour the Flicky, but it's almost like instinct for her. The next chapter begins with Amy in a medical area, her eyes devoid of life, same as Sonic's. He's looking through the window, staring at Amy. Tails says he should get some sleep. He tries to play it off, but Tails pries a little bit and asks what's wrong since he's been quiet since bringing back Amy. A flashback occurs when Sonic is handed the mutilated Flicky, replaying the horrifying moment of seeing someone he cares about do something so unsettling. As if nothing was wrong with it. Sonic threw up in his mouth, and as Amy reaches a blood-covered hand out, smacks it away as if it was instinct for him. Then, when he does that, she notices. She holds her hand out in front of her. She's trembling. Sonic recalls how she looked like she didn't know what she had done. It's as if something awakened in her. Her sense of morality came to life as she looked back at the one she took. The Flicky laid right next to the apple, as if it was just that. Another food item for her to devour. Tears formed in her eyes as she looked in horror at what she had done. The flashback ends in silence, and to break it, Shadow, Rouge, and Knuckles arrive on the scene. Now, I can't blame Sonic for his reaction. In the moment, what would you do? Flickies aren't just animals to these guys. They're kind of like relatives. Remember, Sonic risked his life so much to save them from Eggman. He made sure not to kill them when destroying Badniks, and always freed them at the end of Sonic levels, especially in his earlier history. So they're all pretty much friends to him. Now, imagine one of your closest friends eating your other friend. Okay, maybe that's a bit exaggerated, but Sonic does care about these creatures. I'd be a little scared too, but also conflicted after finding out what Amy and how she reacted. But this is some gross stuff. The next chapter starts with Knuckles yelling at Tails because he said it's not safe to be near Amy. Tails tries to explain, but he says they're acting like she's dangerous. Even Shadow chimes in and asks to hear from Amy herself. Amy blocks out the noise, but a sentence breaks through and says she needs to stay in quarantine. She starts to hear the argument unfold. Shadow asks how long has she been here, and then Tails tries to chime in again, but Knuckles asks if they know what's even wrong with her. Tails tries to say that's what he's trying to figure out, but Rouge interrupts and asks if they can talk to her to see how she's doing. Tails says that's not a good idea. Every time she looks down, she sees the blood on her hands, and they tremble. She's in denial, breathing heavily until a voice calls out to her. It's Sonic, and he wants to see how she's doing, but he's interrupted as she asks for him to go away. She screams there's something wrong with her, and she doesn't want to hurt anyone else. Sonic tries to reassure her and tells her she won't hurt anyone, but how can she be sure? How can Sonic be so sure that anyone is safe near her? The Flicky they spent so much time saving, devoured. You also have to remember there were more Flicky in the area, then they would see the other Flicky and be afraid of her, which may play into the story later. The two sit in a silent tremble until a knock on the door is heard when Shadow walks in and demands to know what is wrong with her. And that's what is currently available for Withered Rose. I know, one of these days I will have a story fully finished to tell you guys. Not to hate the artists and illustrators and writers, but we never get to see finished stories in this community. And that's no slight to this. I do think that this is relatively new, and also life happens, guys, so always try to be patient with these things. I'm just glad it exists, to be honest. I will say, this is one of my favorite stories art-wise because the genuine emotion on each situation is incredible. You felt the disgust when Amy offers the Flicky. You feel her pain because it's that good. I'm really curious to find out what's causing this, if anything at all. I do wonder if it's because of some sort of infection or a parasite. I think it's likely that when she was attacked by something, it gave her something akin to rabies. But instead of rabies, it made her eat Flickies. That, or, I mean, she had parts of her gone, so maybe something was trying to eat her? But Tails didn't mention bite marks. Regardless, this story is really interesting and the art is fantastic. The link to support the creator's new Instagram is linked down below, but just remember to be 18 to view any of their stuff. Thank you everyone so much for watching. Use code Donkachi to get 10% off, subscribe, and stay freaky!